Guys, if you really love South Africa, I think it's really important to listen to Prince Mashele's analysis of the MK Party and Jacob Zuma. I think it's now becoming clearer to me why the GNU is obsessed with the MK Party and really obsessed with Jacob Zuma. When you listen to Prince Mashele's breakdown of the MK Party, you would see a liking to the AFD party in Germany. The AFD party is called the Alternative for Germany, led by, I think her name is Alice Weidel. She's a really ultra-conservative that actually really wants, to bring back coal, to bring back these things that we've considered dangerous to the world, to the planet, arguing that, they need to take Germany back and actually arguing for what has been called a Dexit. I think it's Dexit anyway, something like a Brexit, so to speak, and how Britain left the EU. They also are thinking about how probably they want to exit from the EU, so to speak. And you can imagine what would happen if Germany exits from the EU. You don't even think about that now. But anyway, Prince Mashele is actually arguing that, the MK party might actually be a traditionalist, feudalist, what he even calls a confused party, but they should not be underrated. Because you see, like the AFD in Germany, the AFD is now the second in parliament, following the CDU party that actually won the elections yesterday. And having the AFD with all of their radicalists, really, not radical per se, but they have really, controversial views on how Germany should function. They are now second in parliament, which means that they would influence the direction of policy. They would influence the direction of how policy in Germany actually would go for the next 4 or 5 years. And Olaf Scholz, who has actually been leading this whole movement with the green transition, also with Angela Merkel and all that. Somehow, I really don't know if all of that would continue, especially with Donald Trump now on the scene. Now, Mashele is actually explaining that the MK party might be traditionalist, feudalist. Jacob Zuma wants the chieftaincy in the parliament, all of that kind of stuff. It actually might feel confused, but they have a strong backing. And just like the AFD in Germany had a really strong following, despite the fact that everything that their party stood for sounded controversial to many people in the world, especially in the Western world. They are now the second because they had a really strong backing. In the same way, Mashele is trying to help us understand that the MK party might have a really strange perception of how South Africa should be run, but they have a really strong, powerful backing, strong followership. And he's actually arguing that in the next presidential elections, they might even actually get to almost 30%. And that they might overtake the ANC. He actually also explained that President Ramaphosa might actually be overthrown before the end of his tenure. And so this mind-boggling analysis actually now makes me wonder of a possibility of an MK party in parliament being second, if probably the ANC still maintains its majority. And now that the DA seems to be losing a lot of its supporters, imagine naturally the MK party emerging to the second place in parliament. So we are naturally going to see, without contradiction, without any fear or whatsoever, or probably any kind of fight, natural support leading the MK party to the second. This would influence South Africa in many ways. And it's those ways Mashele is actually trying to capture in this interview he has with Alec Hogg on the possibilities of an MK party really taking center stage in South Africa. And you know what has actually all been spoken about, the whole thing with capital flight and all of that. Bro, this is not even a kind of like a propaganda. This is something that, according to logic, all right, logical analysis, could actually come to be. And so it's really important for South Africans to really start understanding these things and start thinking. Individual South Africans, you guys now have to start thinking carefully on the next action individuals have to take in South Africa to probably alter the way things are going. Because the way things are going, it appears that the MK party is strengthening its base and it could actually overtake the ANC naturally, with the way the ANC seems to be failing in many areas, with the SANDF soldiers talking in the DRC, with Ramaphosa apologizing yesterday for the state 6 load shedding, with Minister Godongwana having a budget postponed. And actually, I will be making a video soon in an interview with, I think, an SABC. You could see the SABC reporter was so frustrated because he seemed not to have solutions to the questions practical questions she actually sent to him regarding the budget. And so we could naturally see, and also this is in light of the fact that the DA seems to be losing its supporters base, and the PA is not yet where it should be in terms of support. So we could naturally see an emergence, naturally, without any kind of like fights or whatever, naturally, the emergence of the MK party taking center stage in the parliament. Let's just quickly listen to Prince Mashele break down how that could become, how that could be, and really share your thoughts. Share your thoughts. Really powerful analysis Mashele gives here. Share your thoughts in the comments.
The MK, if you want to see that it's not a sustainable party, and I've said this before, think of it this way. Say Jacob Zuma is run over by a bus tomorrow. There is no more. We bury him. What do you think would remain there? Let me tell you what would remain. There would be a massive fight for the top position. A massive fight. All of the people who have flocked into MK are banking that when Zuma leaves, they will take over as the leader of the party. That is what the MK is about. That's number one. Number two, the MK is a collection of scoundrels, discredited people, state capture forces. Just look at the prominent names there. You will see most of those people are the ones who played a active part in state capture. And they have lost out in the ANC. And then they decided, let's go to MK, because MK is going to give them two things. Number one, potential political power. They hope and dream that one day it will be a government. Number two, immediately, it's going to address their income crisis, because these people are now unemployed. They need salaries. So what happens? MK sends them to parliament. So your tax, Alec, and my tax, we actually feed these chaps. Yeah, that's what the MK is about. Ideologically, if I were to ask anybody who has listened to everyone at MK, what does the MK stand for? I can tell you, you would struggle to find what the MK stands for. Its Secretary General, Floyd Shivambu, come from the EFF. We know him. He calls himself a Marxist-Leninist. Right? Now, he is the Secretary General of MK. Is MK a Marxist-Leninist party? Certainly not. That's not what Zuma is telling us. If you listen to Zuma, MK comes across as a feudalist, traditionalist, confused party that privileges the role of traditional leaders. That's what Zuma, in his head, that's how the party is about. That is calling for parliamentary democracy, not constitutional democracy. What parliament says, essentially what Zuma says is final. That's what he wants. So it is a bunch of confused characters, but don't underestimate them. They have a following mainly in KwaZulu-Natal, and they can actually upset the apple cart. If Zuma is still alive, he is the major drawing card for MK. In 2029, I would not be surprised if MK were to touch 30%. And I've said this before. The ANC is going to decline. I think it will cross the 30% mark going downward. And I think MK, if Zuma is alive, will probably will cross the 30% mark upwards. And that will have huge implications for our politics.
What are those implications, especially given that the ANC perhaps would embrace its former leader?
Mark my words. This is, let me give you a script of what's going to happen in the ANC, and it will link to MK. Cyril Ramaphosa is not going to finish his term as the president of South Africa. Mark my words. You could say, but this chap is mad. Where does he get this stuff from? In the first place, as a matter of fact, Cyril Ramaphosa's predecessors did not finish their term. It's now culture in the ANC that towards the end, you remove the leader. That's its culture now. They will remove him. And by the way, Cyril Ramaphosa is the weakest president of the ANC ever. Where do I get that stuff from? Post-democracy is the first president to get 40%. There's no president of the ANC who got 40%. So he's very weak in the part. So his term in the ANC ends in December 2027. Now, there will be a new leader from December 2027, and that leader will begin to campaign sometime after the elections, municipal elections next year. There will be a faction, and that faction will be an anti-GNU faction and anti-Ramaphosa faction. That faction will eventually emerge victorious in 2027 in December, and it will have its leader. I'm not quite sure who its leader is now. Paul could be part of that, by the way. Now, when that faction wins in 2027, it will move swiftly to remove Ramaphosa as president of South Africa. And that faction will say, we are rebuilding the ANC. And to rebuild the ANC would include bringing back the MK comrades who are ANC, as well as the EFF comrades who are also ANC. That will be the slogan. And once those people do that, we are likely to have the ANC getting power back in the lower 50s, with Zuma endorsing that if he's still alive, and Malema also being part of that arrangement. We are likely to have the ANC coming back in the lower 50s. That is a likely scenario. So the GNU will last until 2027. 2028, it's going to dissolve. That's my prediction.